Hey everyone, Eric Hayden here on YouTube. Happy May 6th. Want to give you a garden update. Things are really starting to look good in the garden. We're still probably a few weeks away from peak bloom, but some of the plants and bushes that bloom a little early, such as this one you're looking at, Dublin Bay, starting to show off some of the blooms. This is a nice climbing rose. If you've seen my videos from the past, we planted this. I guess this is the second year, and obviously it started really small, and the goal is to get up this whole trellis because it is a climbing rose. We've had some terrible winds the last couple of days. That's why I didn't record any videos, even too windy for videos to be done, but I need to stake this back up or tie it back up to the trellis. But it's a nice growing rose. It's an older one. This one happens to be on multiflora from Palatine Roses. Again, the name of that is Dublin Bay. So pretty nice climbing rose. Good growth on it. Does get some black spot. I had some of that earlier in the spring, but with a little spraying, you can see the new leaves are healthy and a really pretty red color for sure. Very nice red blooms. And these are just the first couple. You'll notice as you grow roses, some tend to bloom, a little earlier in the year, especially if they have fewer petals. So this one doesn't have as many petals, so it opens up a little quicker. And you can see there's still many buds coming. So we're going to have, a peak bloom here in a couple weeks. But I just wanted to show you one of the latest roses today to open in the garden is Dublin Bay. Otherwise, things are looking good. The canna lilies that got zapped by the frost have bounced back. And overall, the garden itself is looking good. Some roses are taking a little longer to recover, but you can see a lot of them have buds on them and they're ready to do quite well. The Yolande rose, the one that first bloomed in the garden, those were just a couple of the teasers. They have since gone away, but we have just a tremendous amount of buds that are ready to open up here over the next couple weeks. So things are looking good. I did want to show you two more quick blooms before I wrap up this tour. This is a short one, but just want to show you the growth. This is Pope John Paul II. You can see healthy leaves and lots of buds. This is Secret. This is one of those roses that took a hit with the April 4th freeze. It has bounced back nicely, and I don't know if you remember, but down here on the bottom of the plant where we only had tiny little bud eyes that were dormant but that were unimpacted by the freeze, they have now shot up quite nicely. I do see that as I'm looking here now, it might be, just a couple aphids on the leaves. It might not show up that well. I got a comment, what do I do for the aphids? I don't do much. I usually don't have a lot of them because I have a fair amount of ladybugs in this garden. I don't usually spray insecticides until I have to, but with aphids you can actually just brush those off with a strong stream of water. This is European Touch. Again, roses are looking really good. This is Folklore, dark leaves. We're a couple weeks away from these opening up, but we're gonna be sitting here pretty with the garden. As I wrap this up, I want to show you two quick blooms. I mentioned if something has just a few petals, it's going to tend to be earlier in the year. That can also be the case on some of these shorter stems. This is a super tiny stem, but this is a pretty orange. I hope it shows up here. This is Fragrant Cloud. It smells even better than it looks. It's an orange rose, orangish red, really pretty. But you can see this is a front runner in terms of blooms on the bush. There's still a lot of buds coming. So this is just, sometimes a rose bush will put out a short little stem. It's not as developed, but it will be one of the first blooms on the bush itself. And the last one I want to show you, this is Cajun Moon. This is kind of like a sister plant to Moonstone. It has a little bit of what's called a split center. Sometimes that can happen when you're applying a lot of nitrogen, like I was there early in the season. I've backed off that. So some roses will kind of get a split center instead of having a specific point, and they'll get confused. Most people don't care about that, but in a rose show, that wouldn't work out. But you can see clusters of blooms on it. I'll do a video down the road. Some roses, what they'll do is they'll put out what's called a spray, and this is a good example here. You've got 1, 2, 3 smaller side buds and a main terminal one. If weeks ago, even now I could do it if I want, if you remove these side buds, you're creating one long stem single rose, and it will throw more energy to that middle bloom. Maybe not necessarily, maybe a little bit bigger. There's not a lot of research that supports that part, but what it does support is you'll have one dominant bloom, no little side ones. If you want a spray, you would remove this middle dominant one, and these 3 little ones would bloom at the same time. So it's really what you want to do. And you'll see some roses do it more often than others. And again, here's an example here. The middle bud is dominant, the 2 side buds are not. So this is going to bloom first. If you want one single big bloom, you want to remove the 2 side ones. So I would just take those off. In fact, I'll do that on this one just to show you. So just take these off, and if you do it early, I'm recording this and filming this, the earlier the better. You ideally want to do it before they get buds like that. I'll see if I can find another example in the garden. You really want to do it as soon as you see these little side buds developing. So now we're going to get one single stem off of that. Whereas this one, I'll do something different for you. I will remove the middle one. Again, I'm recording this and trying to do this is not the easiest. But again, the earlier you do this, the more young that will be. So there, I just removed the center one. So now these 3 will bloom about the same time, and I'll have a nice little cluster of roses to give someone. So there's Louise Estes in the background. If you look on the page from earlier, that was a Maiden Rose from a couple years ago. You can't even tell. It's doing fantastic. One of the more impressive bushes this year, this is a Firm. Again, all these are hybrid teas, other than the Yolande, the old garden rose I showed you. I pretty much only grow hybrid teas. This is Crystalline Florist Rose, used to in some hybridization. It likes to throw out sprays. And again, a spray is where you have, multiple blooms. And you may like that. And if you do, just remove that middle terminal one, the bigger one, and the side ones will develop into a nice cluster of flowers. So it's really, whatever you prefer. This last one I'm going to show you is Hot Princess. This took probably the worst beating of the freeze. If you remember back, I didn't cut anything off because I just want to show you what happens through the year. This is the new growth that got burnt back in April 4th. And if you haven't watched our videos, we got down to 24. And when that happened, we had a lot of new growth like this, real, susceptible to a freeze. So I just left that be, and you can see out of it new shoots have come, but also other parts of the bush have developed. So all of this fresh stuff on top is new over the last couple weeks. And I don't know how well you can see, but you can see I'm getting a lot of new canes too. See that lighter purple, and then that over there. So a lot of new growth down below after I did that alfalfa tea and a little fertilization. And of course, the warmer weather, it did well. This is Gemini. This is Randy Scott, another one that took a whooping with the freeze. It has bounced back, as has Veteran's Honor. Again, you can see all that lush growth on top, and then down below where it kind of looks not so good, that is all the freeze damage that will fall off eventually. I didn't prune it away unless I needed to, because I like to show you what happens in the garden. And the one that's made a big jump this year is Sunny Sundays. This is a newer planting. Moonstone used to be there, but it got taken out by Hurricane Florence. So roses can take a couple years to get their feet, and it's certainly not as tall as Veteran's Honor yet, but it is certainly bouncing back nicely, or not bouncing back, growing. It's still in its infancy in terms of time in the garden. So that's it. You can see the lawn is brown. It's been about 3 weeks since we had substantial rain here. With the drip system and hand watering, the roses are not feeling any impact from that drought. They are looking quite nice. And this last one is Mr. Caleb. So when the buds are cracking, you're getting close to some blooms occurring. Hope everyone's doing well. As always, I appreciate the comments. How is your garden looking? Share some pictures. If you do videos, send us a link. I'll pass that on. This last one is Silver Cream. So spring is probably the best time for the roses. They look good in the fall bloom-wise, but a lot of times they're starting to get insect and disease issues from the duration of the season. Have a great one, everyone.